إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وينفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا ذا الجلال والإكرام السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to this repeat of the heart part 6 for the benefit of those who missed out last week Wednesday. This one we're titling Recognizing the Gifts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because if someone gives you something valuable and you don't know its value, you don't appreciate it. So for example, if someone was to give a person a cell phone that only uses phone and SMS, then it doesn't make a difference whether he gets a Nokia phone or iPhone X. It'll have the same value for you. And on the other hand, if a person gets an iPhone X, for example, and he's got no data connectivity, then the phone is just a camera and a calculator for you. And if he has the connectivity but he doesn't have the apps, then obviously the phone is still not of benefit to him. Now, if you take this human being, he is a sophisticated technology. His connectivity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is via the heart. The software, his operating system is ihsan. And the apps, those are the gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, is salah and siyam and zakah and sadaqah. So when you put all these different facets together, then you can totally enjoy and experience this technology that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. So the first thing we're going to look at is a book called The Black Swan by a man by the name Nassim Nicholas Taleb. He's a Lebanese American. He's not Muslim, but I found some very profound points to ponder in this book. Now, the significance of the name of the book, The Black Swan, what the author says, if a man spends his life studying swans, and all that he's ever come into contact with are white swans, then he's going to believe that the only kind of swans you get are white swans, and then he's going to base his whole belief on that. And then all you need is one black swan to destroy his whole belief system. And then he's shocked and he's surprised. He suffers what the author is saying, a black swan. And so life is a life of tribulation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ. We're going to test you with some, and Allah says, بِشَيْءٍ, just some, a bit of fear and hunger, not fear and hunger in itself. وَنَقْسِمْ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ, and some loss of life and property and goods. وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ, but give glad tidings to the people of Sabr. So the first thing we learn from this verse is that black swans are a part of life. But if we respond to them correctly, then those bad moments can actually turn out to be good moments. Like our ulama say, for every niqmah, for every difficulty, there's a ni'mah hidden in it. If you have the sabr and you will respond to it the way you should respond, then you will find the benefit in it. Now the author gives an example of a racehorse. He says, let's say you have a racehorse, let's call the racehorse Thunder. And Thunder is the most successful racehorse in the history of horse races. And he enters into one of the richest races, and people bet their life savings in hope of earning a windfall. And the day of the race comes, and when the bell sounds and the gates open, Thunder doesn't exit his compartment, and people lose their fortunes. They suffer black swans. But the owner of the horse, he makes a fortune. He's got one bit of information that other people don't have. That the night before, the horse got sick. So he betted against his own horse. So he had a bit of information, and then he acted on the information, and that saved him from suffering a black swan. So the point the author makes, that the difference between suffering black swan and not is having knowledge and acting on it. Now he is a mathematician and a statistician and a risk analyst. So he's not looking at it from an Islamic point of view. He's looking at it purely from a worldly point of view. And we're going to discuss the spiritual significance just after this. The second example he gives is of a turkey. Now, you know, in America on Thanksgiving, they eat turkey. So he says if a farmer rears this turkey for the purpose of eating him on Thanksgiving, then on the day of Thanksgiving, the turkey comes out, and he expects today to be like every other day. Because every other day he was eating nicely and walking around the yard and enjoying himself. But today is going to be a different day, because today is going to be the supper on the Thanksgiving table. Now, similarly, this is the way we go through life. We're always looking at other people and things that happened in the past, and based on that, we have expectations. And then when something unexpected happens, we don't know how to respond to it, and then it causes us grief and depression. So he says one of the things you need to recognize is the difference between scalable and non-scalable information. Now, non-scalable information would be, for example, your height. Your height is fixed, so it's non-scalable. It can't change. For most people, your weight is supposed to be non-scalable. But you know, after a certain age, weight becomes scalable. You can't keep it under control. And then he says you should distinguish between scalable information, that's information you don't have control over. Now for us as Muslims, what we have to understand is that we have control over absolutely nothing. For us, every single thing is scalable. Because we have 100 trillion cells in our body, we don't even have control over one of those cells or what's happening inside of them. So if everything is scalable for us, because in Allah ala kulli shayin qadir, Allah has power over everything, then what we need to do is to attach ourselves to the one for whom everything is non-scalable. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything is non-scalable because nothing escapes him. Everything is under the control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to such an extent that he even knows the future. So for us as Muslims, the way to avoid black swans is to attach ourselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the critical piece of knowledge we need is to learn what affects our existence. And most importantly, that's the heart. If this heart is not connected, we actually have no relevance rather in the world, and we're going to suffer a black swan in the next dimension. Now, just before we get to discuss that, let's look at something he calls confirmation bias. He says generally we're always looking at the world through our lens instead of widening it. So what confirms my point of view, I always want to look at the world that way. So what that does is we actually start to narrow our perspective. So he gives an example of a casino owner. He says a casino owner, for example, will spend great sums of money to avoid losses, maybe from his clients who are trying to cheat him, or from his staff. But there's a far higher likelihood that he could lose money by one of his family members being kidnapped, for example. But that doesn't occur. to his mind. So similarly with us, normally, we feel if we have our insurance, we have our medical aid, we got our retirement package, everything is okay. Then we think we can deal with the contingencies in life. But not realizing that in addition, or rather instead of that, we need to put our tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to have taqwa, we need to have ihsan, because these are the things that mitigate the occurrences of black swans. Now, for Muslims, generally when we go through life, we get two kinds of Muslims. We get one group of Muslims who don't practice their deen. And they think in today's time it's not necessary. The world has become a bit too complex and complicated for Islam. Islam is a bit too simplistic for the modern world. And then we have other Muslims that have actions, they have a'mal, and they put all their hopes in the a'mal. But there's a critical bit of information that even if we act in, it always has to be with ihsan. Because if the ihsan is not there, then the action is worth nothing. And if we come with lots of action, but without the ihsan, then what we're going to suffer on Qiyamah and in the next dimension is black swan. We're only going to wake up at the time of death. Sayyidina Ali says, An-nasu niyam, people are sleeping. Idha mata intabahat. When they die, then they intabahat is like you stand to attention. Now you only start to see the world. So in this hadith, beautiful hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he says to the Sahaba, he says, Atadruna mal muflisu. Do you know who the bankrupt person is? قالوا المفلس فينا من لا درهم له ولا متاع. Sahaba said, no, bankrupt one is one who's got no money, no dirhams, and no goods. فقال, so the Prophet ﷺ said, إن المفلس من أمتي. He said, the bankrupt one is one from my ummah. That means it's someone that's calling himself or herself a Muslim. يأتي يوم القيامة. He's going to come on يوم القيامة بصلاة. What salah? وصيام. And what fasting? وزكاة. And what zakah. So he's coming with actions. But what's he coming with also? ويأتي قد شتم هذا. And he comes and he insulted this one. وقذف هذا. And he falsely accused or slandered this one. وأكل مال هذا. And he ate the wealth of this one. وَسَفَكَ دِمَا هَذَا. And he shed the blood of this one. وَضَرَبَ هَذَا. And he assaulted or beat up this one. فَيُعْطَى هَذَا مِنْ حَسَنَاتِهِ وَهَذَا مِنْ حَسَنَاتِهِ. So he's going to have to give this one his good deeds and give that one his good deeds. فَإِنْ فَنِيَتْ حَسَنَاتُهُ. Now if his good deeds get finished, قَبْلَ أَن يُقْضَى مَا عَلَيْهِ. Before his debts are settled, أُخِذَ مِنْ خَطَيَاهُ. They're going to take from the sins of the people that he oppressed, فَطُرِحَتْ عَلَيْهِ. And those sins are going to be put upon him, ثُمَّ تُرِحَ فِي النَّارِ. Until he'll be put into the fire. So this person is coming with the salah and the zakah and the actions that he thinks are going to save him. But because he has this one bit of critical information short in his understanding, that ihsan is required, he's going to find himself experiencing a black swan when he gets into the next dimension. Now, for the second group of people, the ones that turn away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, He says, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِ. Whoever turns away from my remembrance, فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا. Indeed, they're going to have a very constricted life. وَنَحْشُرُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَعْمَى. And we're going to resurrect them on the day of judgment blind. Now, Ibn Kathir, he says, on the tafsir on this ayah, he says, what does فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا mean? He said, it means this man or person, his life will be hard in this world. He will have no tranquility and no expanding of his breast, no sharh. Rather, his chest will be constrained and in difficulty due to his misguidance. Now, the thing is, if you're laying tonight in your bed and you start to get a pain in your heart, and all of a sudden, once you're over 50 and you feel those things, you start to think, what's happening? Who's going to come and assist you at that time? And that feeling is inside of you. It doesn't matter what you own. There's nothing that you own that can assist you with that. You can only call on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So our comfort and our security is all within us. You can go to another place, you can go anywhere, it will not benefit you. This is why Ibn Kathir, he says, even if he appears to be in comfort outwardly, and he wears whatever he likes, he can wear the best clothing, eats whatever he likes, can eat the best food, and lives wherever he wants. You can go and live in whatever part of the world you want to live in. He will not be happy. Why? Because the happiness and the contentment is inside of you. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't give you that opening, then you will be miserable and living in fear and anxiety wherever you are. So he says you will be in agitation, bewilderment and doubt. You will always be in confusion and a state of uncertainty. That means you'll always be anxious. This is from the hardships of life. You're going to have to try and run from place to place and take all different contingencies against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it's not possible because Allah controls everything. So how do we then protect ourselves against these black swans or these unexpected and shocking things that come about in life? The Prophet ﷺ tells us in this hadith, he says, احفظ الله تجده أمامك. You be mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the key now. Mindfulness. Mindfulness and tawakkul, they like the connectivity. Like the SIM card of the phone. There's no data without taqwa and tawakkul. So if you're mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll always find Him in front of you. That means when the difficulty is coming, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be in front of you. Ta'araf ilallahi fi rakha'i. Get to know Allah in times of ease. Ya'rifuka fi shidda. Allah will know you in times of difficulty. وَعْلَمْ أَنَّ مَا أَخْطَأَكَ لَمْ يَكُنْ لِيُصِيبَكَ. Know that what has passed you by was never meant to afflict you. وَمَا أَصَابَكَ لَمْ يَكُنْ لِيُخْطِئَكَ. And what has afflicted you was never meant to pass you by. You know, Muslims never use the word if. You know, normally when something happens to us, we say, well, if I didn't do this, or if I did this, so and so. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, لَوْ يَفْتَحُ بَابُ الشَّيْطَانِ. He said the word if opens the door to shaitan. In another hadith, he says, يَفْتَحُ عَمَلَ الشَّيْطَانِ. It opens the way to the actions of the shaitan. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us the solution. He says, وَعْلَمْ. And know for certain, أَنَّ النَّصَرَ مَعَ الصَّبْرِ. That the assistance is with. Ma'a means next to. It's with the patience. So patience is a gift. وَأَنَّ الْفَرَجَ مَعَ الْكَرْبِ. And the relief comes with the affliction. وَأَنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. And with the difficulty comes the ease. You just have to wait for it. There's a beautiful story that Maulana Qasim Sima used to tell of the Darul Ulum in Newcastle. He says one day when he was a young alim, he wasn't married, he was walking for Isha, and a man gave him 1 rand. Now 1 rand in that time probably was like 100 rand today. And said, give this to someone that needs it. So he took the 1 rand and he put it into his wallet and he went and led the salah. When he came after Isha, he met this strange person. So he asked him, where are you from? He said, I'm from out of town. He said, you got a place to live? He said, no. He said, well, you can come home with me because I'm living alone. So he took the man home, and his habit was whenever he came into the house, you know, the table just at the door, he'd take out his wallet and take out the keys and put it on the table. And he put the man in the lounge to sleep, and he went to bed. And he said, well, in the morning I'll feed the man and then give him the 1 rand and he can be on his way. And when he got up in the morning, the man was gone, and when he checked in the wallet, the 1 rand was gone also. So he said, this 1 rand was written for that man. He could determine whether he takes it halal or haram. If he had made a little bit of patience, what was due to him would come to him. But because he was impatient, he got exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wrote for him, but he took it in an unlawful manner. So we're going to look at this video. It's a beautiful story. It's based on a true story. And just shows you that when you behave with ihsan, the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can change circumstances for you. Because Allah, the Prophet ﷺ says, Man yassara ala mu'asirin. Whoever makes easy for a person in difficulty, yassara Allahu lahu fi dunya wal akhirah. Allah will make easy for him in this world and the akhirah.
ม่ป่วยเหรอ
อย่าทำอย่างนี้อีกนะ
หมวยเกาเหลาจ๋อนั่งเลยครับนั่งเลย
ป๊า
จัดไปสั่งมาเร็วต่ออะไร
Okay, so that's a beautiful, powerful story. I'm going to remind you just now about how it made you feel. But you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, He says, لِلَّذِينَ أَحْسَنُوا فِي هَذِهِ الدُّنْيَا حَسَنًا. If you behave with ihsan in this world, the reward will be ihsan back for you in this world. And in another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لِلَّذِينَ أَحْسَنُوا الْحُسْنَى وَالزِّيَادَةِ. And for those who behave with ihsan, they get ihsan back to them and they get ziyada. And so the Sahaba said to the Prophet ﷺ, you know, we understand you're going to get hasana back here, but what is ziyada? And the Prophet ﷺ said, on Yawmul Qiyamah, when people are in Jannah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask them, what else can I do for you? And people will say, Ya Allah, what else can we ask for? You blessed us in Jannah, you give us whatever we ask for, and you saved us from the fire. And at that point, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reveal Himself to the people of Jannah, and they will experience such a beauty and a delight that they never knew before. And the Prophet ﷺ said, this is ziyada. So when we behave with ihsan, you get it in this world, and you will get a far more handsome reward in the akhirah. Now, let's come to mindfulness, or we would say taqwa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ ذَرَأْنَا لِجَهَنَّمَ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ. And indeed we have created many of jinn and mankind for the hellfire. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to tell us why now. He says, لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا. They have hearts that they do not understand with. وَلَهُمْ أَعْيُنٌ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ بِهَا. They have eyes that they don't see with. وَلَهُمْ آذَانٌ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا. And they have ears that they don't hear with. أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ. Allah says they like cattle. You know, because the cow is just doing his job. He's like just going through the motions. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala set up for him. Like many of us, we're going through the motions. You go to job every day, drive to work, come back, and you're never really connecting to anything. And then Allah says, Ulaika kal an'am, they are like cattle. Then He says, Bal hum adal, no, they worse. Why? Because you have a cortex, you have a qalb to reflect. You were created for something more purposeful. Allah says, Ulaika humul ghafilun. These are the heedless or the unmindful ones. Now, what we need to learn now is mindfulness and the power of mindfulness and what effect it has on our lives. Now, what's the most important thing a human being owns? It's not his car, it's not his house, it's his time. Time is the most precious resource we all have. You can't delay it. لا يستأخرون ساعة ولا يستقدمون. You cannot delay it and you cannot advance it. One moment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. And shaitan and the media and the corporations, they tirelessly striving to snatch this treasure from us. And our inner elephant, our nafs, it prefers mindlessness because it consumes less energy. You know, even when it comes to listening to a lecture, we want to listen to something quickly, you know, like McDonald's drive-thru. It must be like a 5-minute thing. Don't make it too heavy. Because if it's a bit too heavy, you know, it's like making us feel a bit tired. It's draining, it's taking too much energy. But how do you learn without patience? How do you learn without sacrifice? You know, even for people that are sitting and listening to lectures, say for example on YouTube, you know, if you want to really benefit from that lecture, take a book and a pen and make the notes from the lecture. And every now and then review it. Because someone will say, we had Noman Ali Khan gave such a good lecture. And you say, okay, just tell me 5 things from the lecture, and then you can maybe mention only one. Because you haven't studied it, you haven't internalized it. It's just entertainment. It's just coming in and going out. You know, it's being processed here, but nothing is getting in here. So, we spend most of this precious time of ours in autopilot mode. For people that went to work today, ask yourself, what did you see along the way? Can you tell me 5 things you saw from home to wherever it was you were going to? Probably not. People that climb on the bus, they may be reading books or looking at magazines, but we never know what's happening around us. How many people walked out today and looked at their gardens and looked at the flowers or the color of the grass? Because if you stopped to do that, if you felt the flower or smelt it, those were moments you would have captured. If you stopped to play with your grandchild on your way out from shop and felt the touch of their skin on your skin, heard the soothing sound of their smiles, that would be moments you keep with you. That is time you own. But if we have to take from this morning, say 8 o'clock this morning, right until now, 9:10, how many moments did we own in the day so far? And that will give us an idea of how we're spending our time. Because conscious experience is the time that we truly own and that we enjoy in and benefit from. When the time of death comes, no one is going to think about, I should have opened another shop or spent another hour at work. It's the last thing that's going to be in your mind. Now, autopilot mode is like sleepwalking. You can't remember what happened. If I say, tell me what happened today when you left home and went to work, what happened in that space, most people can't say. So consciousness is what powers our entire reality. And we know, innamal a'malu binniyat, every action is weighed with its intention. And many actions we do without having any intention, so it counts for nothing. And so the whole world with the shaitan is working towards stealing this from us. Whether it's all these social media or the television or whatever form of entertainment we choose. You know, Benjamin Hardy, he says, ordinary people seek entertainment, extraordinary people seek education and learning. And one psychologist, he said, if you are not embarrassed at the person you were a year ago, or the version of yourself a year ago, you're probably not learning enough. Because the Prophet ﷺ said that person whose 2 days are the same has incurred a loss upon himself. Each day, something has to be added that will bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, another word for time can be energy. Because if I can do certain things in, say, 5 things in an hour and somebody else can do 10, they've got more experience in that hour than the person that can only do 5. So you've got energy to do 10, you having more time. And another important concept is something called compound time. Compound time means time you spend doing activities that will benefit you down the line. So we're going to look at some activities, for example. An activity of compound time and one that influences our energy is sleep. Okay? So, insufficient sleep, it affects your concentration, makes you moody, your productivity, and your health. A Harvard study found that inadequate sleep cost the US economy $63 billion per year. A lack of sleep weakens our immune systems, it weakens our memories, and it slows down our metabolism. So if you're trying to lose weight, you need to sleep more. A lack of sleep, it slows down your reflexes. So they found that a person who is suffering from tiredness, from fatigue, his reflexes are just as a person that's suffering from intoxication. His reflexes slow down because when you pass the time that your body recognizes as your cycle, meaning your normal sleeping time, there's certain parts of your brain that actually go to sleep. And so you have what you enter into what we call a slow wave cycle, in that the whole functioning of the brain starts to slow down. So you're just like a person that's intoxicated. A lack of sleep affects your heart rate variability, and this obviously leads to cardiovascular disease. It affects your sense of gratitude, generosity, and empathy. You become less likely to give, less likely to appreciate, and less likely to feel sympathy for other people. It impairs your moral judgment, and it leads to irritability and impatience, increases your risk of type 2 diabetes, trembling and shakes, and obesity. And now we know the Prophet ﷺ never used to speak after Isha, he used to go home and sleep. And we're sitting after Isha and learning, but this is because we're living in a non-Muslim country. So we have to become conscious of our sleep. The next important thing that we need for our compound time and energy is food. Right? Eating a healthy, balanced diet prevents weight gain. It lowers your risk for diet-related illnesses such as heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and depression. Now, when it comes to eating, what you eat is important. Why you eat is important. Doctors are saying we have to become mindful about why we eat, because when you are anxious or depressed, emotions tend to cause you to eat. So become mindful about why you eat. How you eat. They find that the speed at which you eat is directly linked to something called metabolic syndrome. It pushes up your blood pressure, it increases the fat content in your blood, it leads to insulin resistance, it increases the size of your waistline, and it leads to cardiovascular disease, to diabetes, and to stroke. And we're talking of just eating fast. My grandmother used to say you must chew the food for the number of teeth you have in your mouth. So if you've got 32 teeth, chew 32 times before you swallow. And if we look at when you eat, they found that people that eat in what they call the inactive phase, right? Now that means, and for us most of the time after supper is your inactive phase, because you eat and then you do nothing. It has the same effect, it leads to metabolic syndrome. So when it comes to food, why we eat, what we eat, when we eat, how we eat, it's all important. And this is why there's so much emphasis on food in the Sunnah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhan nasu kulu mimma fil ardi halalan tayyiban. He says, O mankind, eat of that which we have, of that which is lawful and good on the earth. But it says halal and tayyiban, halal and tayyib, not just halal. Not just sana approved, it must be tayyib also, nutritious. وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ. Don't follow the footsteps of the shaitan. إِنَّهُ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌ مُبِينٌ. And another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُلُوا مِن طَيِّبَاتِ مَا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ. O you believe, eat of the pure things we have provided for you. وَاشْكُرُوا لِلَّهِ إِن كُنْتُمْ إِيَّاهُ تَعْبُدُونَ. And be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if it is indeed Him you worship. Now the third more important thing about mindfulness and what contributes to our energies movement. So the first thing is sleep, second one is food, and the third one is movement. So movement in terms, if you exercise, it's a compound activity because you feel good now and it benefits you down the line. Meditation or prayer, for example, is found to be good for you now and down the line. Exercising is good for us, and reading a book or reading generally, because reading will benefit you now and down the line. So let's just look first at moving. So exercises or exercising increases blood flow. It increases blood flow, blood pressure, and it drives oxygen to the brain. So it increases the way your brain functions. Moving around can boost one's mood and concentration for hours. Moderate exercise for 20 minutes can improve one's mood for up to 12 hours. Walking increases energy levels by up to 150%. The American Heart Association, they say that person that engages in moderate, intensive activity for 150 minutes a week significantly increase their chances of good health and long life. And two things they describe as moderate intensive activity is walking and tennis, for example. Now one study, this is a study that was done by Stanford University with hotel maids in New York City. So they found that they measured the activity of these hotel workers, and then they called them in and they said to them, you know what, when we measure your movement, you are satisfying the required movement for people your age in terms of your health requirement. And what they found is when these people just consciously knew that, okay, they consciously knew now that their movement was adequate, their BMI, their body mass index, actually was reduced and their blood pressure improved. So in this one, you see, they found that it can improve your activity by 27%. You become mindful of your movement. It starts to cause you to move more often. Sitting is deadly for the body. Sitting, they say, is the new disease with cortisol of the 21st century. When you sit, electrical activity in your leg muscles completely shut off. The calorie consumption drops to 1 per minute. So if you eat a steak, Uncle Muhammad says, you can how long that's going to take to digest. And the enzymes that break down fat drop by 90%. It's another statistic is that for every hour you sit, your body drops good cholesterol by 10%. So sitting is absolutely deadly for us. Now, reading, on the other hand, is a very powerful compound time activity. Reading increases the white matter in the brain. Now remember, in your brain you have gray matter and you have white matter. The gray matter processes information, and the white matter helps the gray matter process the information. So the more white matter you have, the faster your brain can process information. So this is what reading does. So it makes your communication system, your processing of information faster. They found that learning and reading in another language, it increases the size of the brain associated with learning new information and improves overall memory. And you can just think about reciting the Qur'an in another language. Reading affects the parts of the brain involved in what you are reading about. So for example, if you read the word lavender, then your olfactory bulb, the part of your brain involved in smelling, it gets activated. If somebody says to you the word chair, for example, nothing will happen in the sensory part of your brain. But if they say leather chair, your sensory part of your brain will be activated because leather has got a smell and it's got a touch. And when you think about socially rewarding acts, now this is the part I wanted to come to. How did the story we spoke about make you feel? Or the video we watched? It made you feel good. You know, just before I came, my grandson was sitting with me and I was testing the video, and he came and he sat with me and then he watched the whole thing. And it ended and he said, Dada, can't we watch more? I said, why? It makes you feel nice. He says, yeah, it makes me feel nice. You know, I was explaining the story as it was unfolding. So when you exercise, they find a direct link between the flexibility of your body and the flexibility of your brain. So for example, if you think about squatting, then your motor cortex is activated. This is why athletes, you see them always running a race in their mind, because they're activating those parts of the brain, getting them to work beforehand. And this works the same with smells and with tastes. But if we get our children to read, you know, morally uplifting stories, you're already developing the brain and you are grooming them towards behaving that way. And if they're playing all these violent video games and things, you can imagine what's happening in the brain. Now, all these benefits only accrue when reading to develop a philosophy or trying to figure out the message that the writer is trying to get across. So reading useless material, you know, mundane and superfluous stuff is not going to benefit you. And when you look at the Quran is developing your philosophy of life. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to get a message to you. You can try to understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to us. So it's activating all the parts of our brain. Blood flows to more regions of the brain when focused reading as opposed to pleasure reading. And this one, shorter bursts of prose, has profound effects on the brain. Now the Quran, we know especially the last verses of the Quran, they have all these short, powerful verses. And 40% of listeners display goosebumps and activation in other parts of the brain, which were not activated in normal reading. Now, just one interesting verse from the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allahu nazzala ahsan al-hadith. Allah has revealed the most beautiful or excellent statement. Kitaban mutashabihan. You know, a book with parts resembling each other, mathaniyan, oft repeated. تَقْشَعِرُ مِنْهُ جُلُودِ الَّذِينَ يَخْشَوْنَ رَبَّهُم. The skin of those who fear Allah shivers. ثُمَّ تَلِينُ جُلُودُهُمْ وَقُلُوبُ إِلَى ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. And then their skins and their hearts become soft with the mention of Allah. ذَلِكَ هُدَى اللَّهِ يَهْدِي بِهِ مَن يَشَاءُ. This is the guidance Allah gives to whoever He wills. وَمَن يُضْلِلِ اللَّهُ فَمَا لَهُ مِنْ هَادٍ. And for the one Allah sends astray, for him you can find no guide. And this is why we need to make the effort to understand the Quran. Now, in terms of movement, if you choose the wrong movement, for example, smoking, they say each cigarette reduces your life by 14 minutes. Smoking kills 7 million people a year, or 20,000 people a day. Now, if you choose that movement, then obviously the black swan is going to come. And then if it comes, you can't blame Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, well, Allah made me sick. Because you're affecting your own energy and you're affecting your own time. Now, the next important thing is ihsan. We're going to look at how the brain and the body processes ihsan or beauty. So remember we said that taqwa and tawakkul as like the data connectivity, and ihsan is the operating system. Now what science has discovered is that in your visual cortex, you have something called a fusiform gyrus, which is specifically designed just to find beauty in faces. So when you're looking at anything, whether it's consciously or not, there's a part in your brain that's looking for beauty in faces. Okay, this is one of the reasons why when they advertise anything, whether it's a burger or a car or anything, they're always flashing a pretty lady or something there because your brain picks it up automatically. Then you have something else in your visual cortex. It's called the lateral occipital complex, which is designed just to find beauty in objects. So someone sees a nice car, automatically your brain detects it. And you have parts in your brain that are designed, like you have the superior temporal cortex, which is designed to just find beauty in sound. And then you have parts in your orbifrontal cortex, which is designed to look for beauty in tastes and in smells. Okay? And then you have parts of your brain, like the temporal parietal junction. It's a part in your middle of your brain, which is designed to just look for good action and good meaning in life. Now, all these centers of the brain are all receiving these signals, and they're all sending it here to one central processing plant, the orbifrontal cortex. And this part of the brain is connected to another part called the ventral striatum, which is your reward mechanism. But the point I want to make is that the brain interprets beauty and goodness exactly the same. There's no difference. So if you were to look for one term to describe beauty and goodness, in the English language you can't find it. But in Arabic would be ihsan. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands it in everything. Just one interesting thing, that they did a study. They took 396 people and they broke them into 3 groups. And the first group, they said every day for 2 weeks, you will find something beautiful in nature. You take a picture of it and you make a note. And the second group, they said you take a picture of something man-made, but beautiful. A car, a house, whatever it is. And then you make a note. And the third one, that's the control group, they just left them the way they, to do whatever they wanted to do. But at the end of 2 weeks, they found a far higher positive effect in the happiness, the mood, the health indicators of the people that were looking at the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That the human mind is more in tune to recognize the beauty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation. Now let's just look at this neuroscientist. Maybe you think I'm telling you stories. But let's hear what he says about beauty and goodness.
Another group similarly found automatic responses to beauty within our pleasure centers. So taken together, these studies suggest that our brain automatically responds to beauty by linking vision and pleasure. These beauty detectors, it seems, ping every time we see beauty, regardless of whatever else we might be thinking. We also have a beauty is good stereotype embedded in the brain. Within the orbifrontal cortex, there's overlapping neural activity in response to beauty and to goodness. And this happens even when people aren't explicitly thinking about beauty or goodness. Our brains seem to reflexively associate beauty and good.
So now we understand the importance of ihsan. Whether it's preparing a meal, the way you dress, the way you speak, whatever activity you're involved in. Like the hadith says, Inna Allah kataba al-ihsana ala kulli shay. Allah has commanded beauty in everything you do. Whatever you do, no matter how mundane it seems, there is a physical benefit for us. And this is why, it's a beautiful quotation from a motivational theorist. He says it's all about the practice and not the performance. How you do anything is how you do everything. So if you take a football player, for example, if he's always concentrating on stopping the ball perfectly and passing it perfectly, he never has to worry about match day, because scoring goals or playing well is just a natural consequence of his normal routine. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Hal jaza'u al-ihsani illa al-ihsan. Now this is a picture that 2 neuroscientists, this is a steel plate. I just found something interesting. They took a steel plate, 2.5 meters by 3.5 meters, and they etched out all the connections in the brain. You can't get a lens wide enough to photograph all the activity in the brain at one time. But you can see how many things are happening in the brain at one time. So your brain has 100 billion neurons. Each one is firing 200 times per second, and each time it fires, it's connecting to 1,000 neurons. So it's 100 billion times 200 times 1,000. That means 20 million billion bits of information per second. I think it should be about 200,000 terabytes per second. And each one is absolutely necessary for your brain to function efficiently. Now, if you were to give shukr for each one of those functionings, how much shukr we have to give to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we're only talking about the brain. So when you understand this, what would you say then? You know, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Which of the favors of your Lord, you know, will jinn and men deny? And another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. If you would or attempt to count the favors of Allah, you'll never be able to do it. إِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Allah is indeed most forgiving, most merciful. Now, the next important part of your body. So we spoke about mindfulness, we're speaking about ihsan in the brain, and we're going to come to the third part of the body, which is called the social engagement system. Now, basically, your body has got, or medicine previously believed, two states, your active state and your calming state, which they call the flight or fright state, or your freeze or faint state. But what they've discovered recently, that there is a state in between. And that's the one that keeps the body in balance. It's called a social engagement system. Now, this system basically is made up the reward centers in your brain together with the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the longest nerve in your body. It's connected to your motor cortex, to your ears, to your larynx. So it's affected by what you see. It's affected by what you hear. It's affected by what you say. And then it's connected to your heart and to your lungs and your liver and your gallbladder and your bladder and your reproduction system. So all the vital organs of your body. So the important thing to understand or take away from this is that when you behave with ihsan, you're literally having an effect throughout your body. So as we're moving down, so we're looking at the brain and we're looking at this social engagement system. They call it the ventral vagal system because it's working from here up. So we're starting from the top and coming down here. And then we look at another system in the body. It's called the endocannabinoid system. And this was discovered by an Israeli scientist. He was working with the cannabis plant. And he found that the THC molecule in the cannabis plant fitted perfectly with the receptors in the human body. And then they discovered that all these receptors were found throughout the body, and that the body manufactures its own cannabinoids. It's equivalent of the THC molecule that you would want to get from smoking marijuana, for example. So this thing has powerful effects on the body, and we'll just hear a doctor quickly what he's got to say about the system.
To discover a system of physiology that we all have inside of us that's constantly maintaining balance at a cellular level. It was named the endocannabinoid system because we discovered it when we were looking for how does cannabis work. Now we know that the endocannabinoid system is active in everyone all the time, from even before you were born to the end of your life, helping promote health and balance physiologically. This system is present all through the body and all the different tissues. That's why it can help with disorders of the brain, of the various organs like the liver or the intestines. It can help with musculoskeletal problems. It can help with inflammatory and immune issues. Your body is making cannabinoids all the time. These molecules function a lot like THC and the other cannabinoids found in the plant. And your body knows when to make these and how to make these to keep you healthy.
Okay, so there's a large body of evidence that the endocannabinoids regulate your mood, your emotion, your motivation, memory, pleasure perception, appetite, metabolism, and more. It affects your immune system, affects inflammation, healing, in fact, almost every kind of process in the body. It is the conductor of the human physiological orchestra. It is affected by positive states of mind and action, also by exercise. It is affected by the food we eat and amazingly even by the ambience of the meal. Chronic stress negatively affects the endocannabinoid system. Changing the way we think, speak and act literally causes changes in our body. Now, the point we're trying to get to is that we need to look at the way the body is designed. There's so much of ihsan. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. Allah says we created this human being with ihsan. But the way the body is designed, it's designed for you to behave purposefully and to behave beautifully. And this is tied into the physiology of your body. So you are the beneficiary of good thoughts, of good speech and good action. But now we're going to come to one of the most wondrous things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. And this is the immune system. I'm just going to discuss it quickly. So what affects your immune system is the things we spoke about. Nutrition, sleep, positive movement. Hippocrates, the famous Greek philosopher, he said, let food be thy medicine. And we know the Prophet ﷺ said the stomach is the storehouse of diseases. And Dr. Joel Fuhrman, he says modern medicine treats symptoms. So medicine doesn't cure us. It doesn't heal us. It causes more problems. If we want to live happy, healthy lives, we have to find an alternate way of living. We have to give our children something different to what we've been given because the world is not healthy. We all know that. Now let's just look quickly. The immune system is the key to fighting diseases. Okay, the immune system is the body's main line of defense if it functions properly. If it doesn't function properly, it has a dark side because it can attack the cells in the body. So diabetes is an example of the immune system attacking the body. Cancer is another an example of the immune system attacking the body. Now, just in terms of the immune system, you know, it can erect a physical barrier like mucus to neutralize bacteria. It has like innate immunities, like a general immunities. You know, if there's a general threat, then certain cell or immune cells will get together to combat that threat. But then it has something called adaptive immunity. That means if some virus comes in, your body has the ability to create special cells to just attack that virus. And then those will remain behind afterwards just as an extra level of protection. But the important thing I want us to understand is that one of the laws that govern the immune system is the law of specificity. That is, your immune system has the ability to create an antibody for any antigen, for any illness. It's like the most advanced pharmacy on the planet, and it's inside of each of us. It has a law of tolerance. That means it will not affect or harm any of the other cells if it's functioning normally, so it's got no side effects. And it will even determine the appropriate response. So what we have to understand is that the body literally has the ability to cure itself. But what is it that will cause our bodies to cure itself? And this we get to something called the placebo effect. And the placebo effect, basically, scientists say is that a cure brought about by an inert substance, meaning by nothing. Or they say the mind, you know, fools the body into producing the cure. Now, in modern studies, it's become so effective that medicine has to now create a room for placebo studies. So if we look at Harvard University, this doctor, he says the placebo effect is more than positive thinking. Believing a treatment or procedure will work. It's about creating a stronger connection between the brain and the body and how they work together. Another statement, science has now found that under the right circumstances, a placebo can be just as effective as traditional treatments. The evidence shows that interventions activate a mental response which triggers the immune system into action. So previously, doctors thought that we fooled, we can fool our bodies into doing it. But what Harvard University found is that they explained to people. So what they did was, they took people, they got them to hold their hands over a plate, a heated plate, until their hands, they couldn't tolerate it anymore. And then what they did was they gave one of the groups an ointment that'll, like an anti-burning ointment. The second one, they gave them just a normal cream, maybe like Nivea cream, okay? But they explained to them that your body has the ability to cure itself, and they found the same amount of relief for both groups of people. So placebos were found to be effective, for example, for people that went for knee surgery. They took 3 groups of people. One, they did the knee surgery. The second one, they just cut them open and cleaned up, sewed back up. And the third one, they just cut open and closed up. But after a few months, all of them reported that they were cured from the knee problem. They found it to be effective in relieving congestion in asthma patients, and pain relief in cancer patients. And from the quantum study, we know that energy follows thought. And our emotions and speech physically affect our body. So if you generate positive energy, you will have this positive effect through your body. And if you preoccupy yourself with negative thoughts and actions, you're going to negatively affect your body. Now, this is an amazing study. This was done in Vancouver, Canada. They took people with Parkinson's disease, took them off the medication until they started shaking and manifesting all the symptoms of Parkinson's disease. And then they gave them a placebo. That means they gave them just sugar tablets. It had no pharmacological action.
The brains of those people, while taking placebo, increased the amount of dopamine by 200%, equivalent to their stable dose of levodopa before they were taken off the drugs. That's amazing. What just happened there is the brain released the very same chemicals that scientists, that physicians give patients when they have Parkinson's disease. And I think that's an amazing experiment. This experiment has been replicated several times, more elaborately. And importantly, there have been other experiments, other conditions, other neurotransmitters, other areas of the brain. And what we're finding is consistent. For example, when a person is treated with the rituals, symbols, placebos, the pills, whether they have content or not, when you're in pain, the brain releases endogenous opioids, cannabinoids, and/or prostaglandins. There's a veritable pharmacy in each and every one of us.
So that's just to prove what is inside of us. But just like your mind can cure, there's the opposite effect, which is called the nocebo. Now, when people are skeptical, for example, the mind can do the opposite. So nocebo literally means I will harm. It refers to the mind's ability to cause physical harm. So for example, they gave some cancer patients just a saline solution, and they told them this is chemotherapy. And their hair started to fall out. So as this microbiologist says, it is always our mind that makes a treatment effective, and it is our mind that can make us suffer from pain. Reading side effects could be a self-fulfilling prophecy. Sometimes you read the side effect and then you suffer from that. So in this one study, they did a study on antidepressants. And this 27-year-old person was on the sugar tablet. But he thought he's on an antidepressant. He had a fight with his girlfriend and he overdosed on the sugar tablets. So his heart started racing and his blood pressure started falling. Systematic of an overdose. They rushed him to hospital. And when he got there, they said to him, but you are on a placebo. That was sugar. It was not antidepressants. And immediately all the symptoms subsided. So it was all in his mind. So we're going to come to something called the drama, what scientists call the drama of medicine. So they say that when you go to a hospital and you see the doctor and he examines you and he gives you the medication, all those things affect your mind, and then this is why the placebo works. They call that the drama of medicine, But for us, it's something greater. We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala controls everything. We know that He holds the cure. So when we have taqwa and we have tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we understand the way the body works, then we literally have the ability to start healing and assisting ourselves. We don't need the drama of medicine. We need the taqwa and the tawakkul. We need the mindfulness together with the ihsan, with the beauty, and then this has this effect on the body. So now we're almost at the end. We will look at the negativity, and we look at something, for example, like black magic. You know, often you go to a magic man and then you take his whatever, intervention he gives you, and then people swear by it because it does something to them. But you're starting to see that this is tied into the way your body functions. When you believe that what that man is giving you can help you, the body can create the circumstances to heal itself. But if you do that and you're not putting your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's like a form of minor shirk. You're taking your trust out of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and putting it into that. The thing to understand is you have this technology inside of yourself. And it's not to say that jinn and sihr doesn't exist, but it may be relevant in 5% of the time and 95% not. But yet for us, it exists 95% of the time and 5% not. The brain is so sophisticated that they find that if they stimulate your auditory cortex, for example, you can start hearing footsteps, voices and sounds. If they stimulate the parts of your visual cortex, you can literally start to see faces and shapes. So when you're in a state of fear and you're thinking of something, so if you're walking in a forest, for example, and you see a stick, your brain will complete the information and think it's a snake. So when we get ourselves panicked up with jinn or with magic, then you start to hear the sounds and start to smell things that are not there, all right? But most importantly, in this country where we're living with all this turmoil, all these messages that come on the WhatsApp and we're watching the news, we don't understand what an effect it has on our body and on our health. But we have something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, and that's called tawakkul and taqwa. All right? We have this technology inside of us, and all we need is the gifts that activate. We need the apps. And to understand that these apps are gifts. You know, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us salah, it's not a burden, it's a gift. Fasting is not a burden, it's a gift, because it ties into the physiology of your body. So forgiveness and gratitude and patience are all gifts which activate this healing inside of the body. Now, this is a guy in America. He's got a book, it's called The Healing Code. He's a very famous guy, and he says he was sitting on a plane one day and God inspired him to help people. And so basically what he does to people, he gives them like a couple of activities to do, you know, and they should say something positive. I just screenshot this from YouTube. It says, "Heal me, God, of all known and unknown negative memories, thoughts, beliefs, and images." And they swear that that heals them. But we have the guidance from the manufacturer, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Has given us du'as to read. Has given us things to protect us against jinn and magic. Has given us things to recite and activities to do when we find life difficult, when we're suffering black swans. Now, if we can just get ourselves to believe firmly enough and our tawakkul strong enough in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we can change any circumstance that we're faced with. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in taqwa and tawakkul, He says, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. If you have the taqwa of Allah, Allah will make a way out for you. The Prophet ﷺ said if the Ummah understood this verse would be sufficient for them. Then Allah goes on to say, وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. Now what Ibn Kathir says, what this means is that if you come with tawakkul, you know, now we're not only talking about something positive happening inside of your body, because that's placebo, all right? But we're talking of externally, because Allah says, وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. So Ibn Kathir says that if you come with tawakkul, Allah comes with whatever else it is you need. That means an external support system also. So you have something that you can influence inside and something that influences from the outside. And then we know ihsan is like the operating system. Without it, no apps work. So now when you understand the technology of the body, then you understand to make shukr, for example, is a gift. And it has two dimensions. One, it has an effect in your body. Two, it brings the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Inna arsalna alayhim hasiba. Indeed, we sent against them a tornado. Illa ala Lut. Except the family of Lut. Najjaynahum bisahar. We saved him in the last hours of the night. Ni'matan min indina. That was a favor from us. Kadhalika najzi man shakar. This is the way we reward those who make shukr. And this is a very scarce resource in South Africa today. You can just see by the news and everything going around. So the same thing with patience and forgiveness, with salah, with zakah, with fasting, dua. Each of these things. You know, dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ud'uni astajib lakum. You call on me, I will answer. If you ask my servant, ask you concerning me, say, I am near. When you make tawbah, the Prophet ﷺ said, lazim al-istighfar. If you continue istighfar, Allah will make an opening for you from any or every difficulty. So these are gifts that's going to help us avoid black swans as regards our health, as regards the tests that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed on us, but most importantly what we find in the akhirah. So based on this, we have to look at Islam not as a set of rules or commands that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed upon us. This is not an employee-employer relationship. You know, when we pray, we say, let's just pray quickly and go. Because let's just get it done with. Salah is a gift. This is why the Prophet ﷺ used to say, Ya Bilal, arihna bis salah. Oh Bilal, comfort us with the salah. It's a gift. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called this deen a gift. He said, Al-yawma akmaltu lakum deenakum. This day I perfected your religion for you, wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati, and I completed my favor or my gift upon you. Wa raditu lakum al-islam deena, and I chose Islam for you as your religion. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَيُحِلُّ لَهُمُ الطَّيِّبَاتِ وَيُحَرِّمُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْخَبَائِثِ. He made halal for you what's good for you. And He made haram for you what is harmful for you. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ. And we reveal this Quran as a shifa. وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And as a mercy for the believers. وَلَا يَزِيدُ الظَّالِمِينَ إِلَّا خَسَارًا. And it doesn't increase the oppressors or the disbelievers except in loss. And in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also calls the Quran a shifa. Shifa'un lima fi sudur, for what's in your breast, meaning your heart. Wa hudan wa rahmatul lil mu'minin, and a guide and a mercy for the believers. So if we understand this, we can give ourselves the gift of health and happiness by obeying Allah, by following the Prophet ﷺ, by becoming more mindful of all our activities and infusing ihsan into it. Now, if you and I knew how the body functions, and we knew that whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us to do, how would we approach the deen? And we'll end with this beautiful verse of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَجَاهِدُوا فِي اللَّهِ حَقَّ جِهَادِهِ. You should strive for Allah the way you ought to strive. Because you should understand that this is for your benefit. You know, when you're making more profit, you stay longer open. And this is the purpose for these strivings. هُوَ اجْتَبَاكُمْ. Allah chose you, we didn't choose Him. وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. And Allah has not placed any difficulty in this religion. And Ibn al-Qayyim, what he says, based on this part of the ayah, it means everything Allah told us is beneficial for us. مِلَّةَ أَبِيكُمْ Ibrahim. This is the way of your father Ibrahim, and we know the way of Ibrahim alayhi salam was ihsan. هُوَ سَمَّاكُمُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ مِنْ قَبْلُ وَفِي هَذَا. It is Allah that named you Muslims before and in this deen. لِيَكُونَ رَسُولٌ شَهِيدًا عَلَيْكُمْ. That the messenger can be a witness over you, meaning we measure all our actions against the example of the Prophet ﷺ. وَتَكُونُ شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. And we are witnesses over mankind, meaning mankind should measure themselves according to our standard. But if we're not behaving with ihsan, then what is the standard? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, so look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after that is now saying, فَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. Perform prayer and pray, give the zakah. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِاللَّهِ. And you should hold on to Allah. That is tawakkul. Only on Allah. Huwa mawlakum. He is your protector. No one else. Nothing else can protect you. فَنِعْمَ الْمَوْلَى. What an excellent protector. وَنِعْمَ النَّصِيرُ. And what an excellent one to assist you. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.